It's me, Clinton, and welcome to the final episode of 2025. On Where's My Mind, I wrap up the podcast every single year since 2023 by telling you every single thing I've done in the year and what I've liked, what I did not like, blah, blah, blah. Just like reminisce on like the past year. And it's 2025's turn. I don't know what to say. Um, I want to start from like the very first thing I did this year. Like my day one thing I did into the first day of 2025. Do you know what happened? It was New Year's Eve 24. And I was like, I need a new tradition for 2025 or for the subsequent years of my life. I need a tradition for New Year's Eve. I need to do something new for New Year's Eve. You see on TikTok or on the internet where people say on New Year's Eve they go under the table and eat grapes. On New Year's Eve they go to like different places like parties, church, blah blah blah. I was like, I need my own tradition that I commit to for the rest of my life on New Year's. And I had to make it up on New Year's Day, on New Year's Eve of 24. What I did was 5 minutes before it turned like 2025, I went to have a shower. I was underneath the shower that day, turning 2025. And I think that's like my tradition for the rest of my life, like being under a shower, under water, under a rain, like under some sort of like body of water when it's turning to the new year. I just felt like I just felt like I was washing off the previous year. I know that's impossible. Like that can't happen, but it was like symbolic in a way. So that's what I did in the first day of 2025. I was in the shower, showering myself. I just wanted to feel clean going into the new year for some odd sense, and I will continue incorporating that into my New Year's tradition. I don't have a Christmas tradition yet because I'm not like a big Christmas person. I only like Christmas decorations. We all know that. Um, and the first episode of 25, like 2025, was like the episode where I finally said the truth. I was like, I can't be lying to the three people who listen to this podcast, or like the two people who listen to this podcast. I have to be honest, and I spoke about my dyslexia. Last year's episode, I knew like the dyslexia episode was coming out last year when I recorded the last episode of 2024. So I knew that's why that episode was very vulnerable. I said a lot of things in that episode. I can't remember what I said, but I have been like editing for the end of year like posts, and I've not like seen like a little bit of like I've seen some things, and I'm like, oh, that's a very dark episode. Like I don't think I was able, I can still do that, but I just feel like there's like no need, in my opinion, to like pour that amount of like information to like a lot of people. And I think this year I've like really struggled with like being like super vulnerable with like myself and like filming my vulnerability because I feel like there's like a listening ear, and I don't want to like ever like push my problems to like a massive amount of people, even if I only get two people. I think there is a sense of freedom when you let go. But I've my whole life I've been trying as much as possible to be in sole control of like every single information, decision, thing I did. Like I want to be in control, but I think like so I never spoke about my dissertation on this podcast, but my dissertation was about Big Brother and like the perceived feeling of control, and I always thought I was the one on in control. I never thought someone else was in control. I always thought I controlled my narrative and everything that was going on. So starting this new episode like this year, like the first episode of 25 being I'm dyslexic, I chose to relinquish control in some ways. Even if the episode was super vague, I have never listened to an episode that has been that vague in my entire life. I was alluding to stuff that I did not like exactly what I'm doing right now. I was alluding to like some things that I did not give enough detail about. I was just like I was so vague in that episode, and I've been super vague in a lot of episodes this year because I don't want to like say it up front. I think the last three episodes has been like the most honest I've been on the podcast. I've been honest in every single thing I said, but I've been super vague. I think the last three episodes has been the most direct I've been on the Where's My Man podcast in like the last 3 years. I think I truly since I like no since I got like the theme for next year actively choosing, I chose to like actively be direct. I chose what I was gonna say. Like if I knew like this was not gonna go in, I would like cut it off because I'm the editor of the podcast. I'm the creator. I own every single like rights to this podcast. I don't need to like talk to somebody else like release the episodes. The episode's not released under a publication. There's no agency behind me. So like every single thing I do on the podcast is my own decision. So like everything that is gonna be cut, I own the editing rights. Like everything that I am going to do is it's in a way. I've been thinking of this podcast as a hobby, but I think it's turned into a business slowly. But I think in a way, every single thing I do is I have the final say. I have the final call. I have the I like I think there was an episode I released about the Christianity episode, and like I said so many disgusting things about Christians that I had to like cut it off because I was like, if I forget about this episode and this goes out on the internet, it's not vague in any way. Like I was really. I insulted like a massive amount of people, so I like, cut that part off from that episode. I can't remember the name of the episode, but yeah, I think listening, like, I watch Candace Owens, the podcast, and last year she was talking about being truthful. And, like, I had heard this before, but I never took it as seriously as when Candace Owens said it last year. She said, if you, and I know I've said this on the podcast before, so if you're a consistent listener, there's no need for you to like listen to this part. But like she said, if you lie, then you need to have a very good memory. But if you just live your life telling the truth, then you don't need to have a good memory because every single thing you're saying is what happened, and you don't need to like remember what you told Samson on the bus. Like I said in 2023. When I see 23, I know everybody who listens to the podcast gets it, but like I said in 2023, I used to lie a lot, and like different people had I'm not joking, different people had different like gist about my life. I was a prince to one person and a pauper to another person. I was a scientist to one person and I was a cleaner to the other person. I was different people to different I was a different person to different people, and I think like that that fueled a lot of my anxiety in my early 20s. Like I was a pathological liar. Like if I told you my name, I never told anybody my I never told anybody my real name. I had different names for different people, and there was like someone I met in 25 earlier this year, and the person called me a name that I told the that I told the person, and I was like, in my head, I was like, who is that? And then I realized that, oh, that's the name I like introduced myself as to this individual. And then I was like, I was a pathological liar. Like one great lie I told people, I never told people like my country of origin. I always lied. I always told people I was from Trinidad and Tobago. Let me tell you. Okay, I'm gonna tell you the story. So in my church, the first day I went to my new like the church I go to now, like my first Sunday there, I didn't want to tell anybody where I was from because I know everybody asks where you're from. So whenever people ask me where I was from, I would just say I just thought of like a country where there's a lot of black people, and I just said whatever country came to mind at first. Then I always said, "Oh, Trinidad and Tobago," or "Oh, I'm from Ghana," or or I'm from Zimbabwe. Like I was a liar. I was just a pathological liar. And I know these lies are like not harmful to people. They're not like affecting anybody's lives. I was just like trying as much as possible to like protect, like control situations that in my opinion, I don't think you can control any situation. I think life happens and you can plan as much as you possibly can, and sometimes your plans will not go the way you want it to go. But I think there's a difference between planning and controlling. I was controlling. I was not a planner. I like if something was going to like spread, I wanted to have like the powers to make it stop. Like the episode I released, oh my god, I was a very damaged person in 2023. But I released an episode and was talking about um wanting to know what's in every single person's mind so I can like behave appropriately to what so I could like shape shift to what that person wants me to be, or like, and I know that has been a theme this past 3 months. I've been speaking about like confirming to like what I think other people want me to be or whatever. But I think in in like the past for like year, I've noticed that you can't you can never truly be what somebody else wants you to be, and I don't want to know what anybody thinks about me anymore because that's none of my business. But in some ways I still find myself thinking of what I think X thinks about me in a lot of like situations. Like if I'm like on the bus, like walking down the street, I wonder how I'm being perceived a lot of the times. And I know that's something that I will have to like outgrow and like grow through as the year goes on. But back to telling the truth. So this year, with the theme being improvement, I really wanted to improve my truth telling skills. I really wanted to be like forthright and honest. I really wanted to not have I didn't want to like always put up an act around people. So I started telling people the truth at first. And when I told people the truth, it made me feel more anxious than when I told people lies, because I know when I was telling people lies that was not really me. So if you don't like that person, that's none of my business, because that's a character created for you. You did not just like the character. But like if I like let you know who I was, and then you like rejected that person or like rejected me, that person is crazy. You rejected me. um I felt it hurt, like it like the pain of like rejection was a lot worse, and like the anxiety from like truly being myself was worse than the anxiety of not acting like the perfect character for this person. So I had to like outgrow that this year. The first place I said my dyslexia like diagnosis, before I started like yapping to every single person who has ears, was on this podcast, and I had to like make that like a serious episode. I had accepted it like late last year. So when I knew I was going to release an episode on it, I spoke about it on the podcast very in a very vague way. I literally never said the word dyslexia until 10 minutes into the whole podcast episode. I'm not joking. It was a 17-minute long podcast, and I said dyslexia 10 minutes into the video. So, it's so annoying. Um, what's it? What else? And then like I could fully tell people like, oh yeah, I'm dyslexic. Like on Sunday I told somebody I was dyslexic, and I would have never told anybody in church, mind you. And this was my first time like actually having a conversation with this person. Yeah, I think this year I have like like this year's theme being improvements. I think I've improved like my truth telling skills. I'm no longer a pathological liar. I still dabble in lies. I would never stop lying, but I'm not like a serious liar anymore. I don't like lie about things that are not significant. Like I'm not joking. And I know there's an episode on this podcast where I said I lied to every Uber driver. I lied to every single Uber driver that I got in contact with, no matter who the person was. Like, if the person asked me my name, where I lived, I was like, no, I'm going to visit X. Da, 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 da. I was just, because I don't know. I was just a pathological liar. I can't even think of like lies I've said. I know I said about like the um Trinidad and Tobago one. Oh yeah, in my old job, every single person thought I was from Trinidad and Tobago because I lied and said I was from. The only person who knew where I was actually from was like my boss. Not the rest of the staff thought I was from Trinidad and Tobago. What other lies like I told a lot of lies, and like this year I've like told a lot of like truths. And especially in the last three episodes where like the truths are not like super vague, they like direct. Um, and this year I spoke a lot about a lot of things from like racism. I never like spoke about racism upright because I don't think I would ever be like I don't think I'm someone who will ever like speak about racism as like a big topic because in my mind and in my head because I don't experience it a lot. I would not like come here and speak about it. But I spoke about the. I was just going to my outlines, so I know. So I speak about everything I want to speak about. But I spoke about the systems and like the comfortability with like racism right now, and like how everybody is like seemingly racist, and I don't. Yeah, I spoke about that in some ways in an episode. If you want to go listen to the episode, there's an episode I released this year called "Is White Right?" And I listened to that episode, and I still agree with most things I said in the episode. I also released an episode about Hitler. So not an episode. I released a series about Hitler, and it was the series is called "Is Fashion." I like naming like my episodes really childish names. Maybe next year I will start thinking of like very educative names. But like the Hitler episode is fascism bad? That's the name of the episode. But like that's the first like episode in like the series, and then the next three episodes are part of like the whole series. And then I also spoke about Fashion Week in my on the TikTok version of this podcast. It's not on the podcast version or YouTube. Um, I spoke about the Met Gala and like subjectivity in fashion and the fact that like what I see as like fashionable can differ from person to person. Fashion is not an objective medium; it's subjective. What else happened this year? A lot happened in 25. A lot happened. Like there's a big one that happened that I don't want to talk about yet because it's an episode next year, so I don't like spoil what happened in 25. But it's gonna like there's a full episode about you see the vagueness. I cut this part out. Let's do the annual tradition that started in 2023 of my favorites of the year. Who was my favorite musician of the year? Who was my favorite song of the year? Who was my favorite show? My favorite shows of the year. My favorite designer of the year. My favorite fashion show of the year. My favorite podcast of the year. My favorite YouTuber of the year. My favorite um quote of the year. My favorite author of the year. My favorite book of the year. My favorite fashion item I got this year. Let's find out. Let's find out what Clinton's favorites were for. Like, so annoying. Let's find out Clinton's 2025 favorites. Y'all know Spotify Wrapped. Let me tell you, I don't use Spotify Wrapped because I don't use Spotify. I use Apple Music. So, yeah. Um, let's go to my favorite music of the song of the year. Sorry. Why am I saying music? So, on my replay, I am really not a real human being because I have the same person as last year. My favorite song of the year is Wildflower by Billie Eilish. And that was the same song as last year, so shocker. Um my favorite artist of the year, I'm gonna give you all of my favorite artists of the year. I'm gonna give you the top five. Tate McRae, Billie Eilish, Nussa Barrett, Gracie Abrams, and Beyonce. So the people I was listening to. First I said this year before the year before like today, I was saying that I am going to be up in my misandry next year and try as much as possible to like listen to only females. And I think my Spotify Wrapped has like shown that I listen to mostly females, so that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. My favorite shows of the year are so adults, Emily in Paris, and The Big Bang Theory. My favorite book of the year. I can't remember every single book I read this year, so far, I've read 46 books. I don't think I'll be able to make my 52 books this year, but so far I've read 46. And I think that's okay. I'm reading a book right now, but so far I've read 46 books. I did not reach my goal this year, unfortunately. I was really lazy this year. Okay, honestly, I read more books than last year. Oh my god, my sorry, my headphones are like lagging, so like they're a second late, and I can't deal with that. But like last year, I read 36, I think, or 32, and I passed that last year at least by 12 or 10. So I am okay with that, but I would try as much as possible to like read two books before the end of the year. So at least I have 48. My favorite word of the year is edifice because it's part of my like it's a word that means it means structure. Edifice is like a structure, and it's what's it called? It's a song that I'm writing for my EP that's coming out in 2027. The demo is almost done. Um, did I say my book of the year? I don't think I said my book of the year. I think I'll give my book of the year to A Little Life because A Little Life helped me recognize like the temporariness, like how temporary life is. And I think before you say goodbye as well, because I think if I get cancer, I will not treat it and I will let myself die. And I know I make a lot of like suicidal jokes on this podcast. I was talking to my cousin on her birthday on Saturday, and she was telling me that she does not think she turned 17, and she was telling me that she did not think she was gonna like make it to 17. That she was like she has been contemplating suicide, and I think I make I joke about suicide a lot, but I think next year it's gonna be like like I'm gonna stop joking about suicide because I think people actually suffer from like suicidal ideation. But like I don't think I'm someone who, if I get cancer, would like treat it. I think I'll let myself die. Yeah, and the reason why I told you about my cousin, because I want to start calling, like I want to be like a safe space where people like say things like this, because I told you earlier this year my cousin, also a different cousin, said she was contemplating suicide. So I want to be like a shoulder people can cry on, and I don't want to like burden people with like my suicidal thoughts anymore. So I think this might be my last time telling you I'm gonna kill myself. Hey, so take that with a grain of salt. My favorite podcast of the year is the Candace Owens podcast. I'm so sorry, but I'm in love with Candace Owens. I'm in love with Candace Owens. She's just like really honest, and she like inspired me to like start telling the truth. Truly, if I was not listening to Candace Owens, I would have still been lying pathologically. And the Emergency Intercom podcast by Drew and Enya. Another podcast I listen to, The Run Through with Vogue, and what other podcasts do I listen to that I can mention here? I do not know. I don't think Rotten Mango was like like I know for the last 2 years Rotten Mango has been on my podcast list, but this year I was like deep in it because like I think the format has changed on Rotten Mango, but I still listen to Rotten Mango every year. I think it's not one of my favorite podcasts of the year, but it's a podcast I still continue to listen to. Um Anything Goes by Emma Chamberlain, it's a podcast I still listen to, but I was not consistently listening to Emma's thoughts about different topics this year because I just felt it became. I think in a way, because Emma has helped me in like understanding my thoughts and understanding most things. I think I don't think I've outgrown Emma Chamberlain, but in a way, I think we are no longer in a relationship. What's it like? I know it's not a real relationship. I know it's like but I know I still listen to Anything Goes, but I don't gain anything valuable from Anything Goes anymore as I did in the last 3 years. The Alex O'Connor podcast is a podcast I listen to. So those are my podcasts of the year. My favorite fashion trend of the year is like the one I predicted last year, which is like brown being like the most staple color on in people's wardrobes. And I noticed that a lot of people were wearing brown this year. So yeah, and like a lot of like fashion, like not fashion shows, but like fashion people were like incorporating brown into their looks. My favorite fashion show of the year is Fendi and Chanel SS26. I truly enjoyed both of those shows, and Prada as well. I know I'm only mentioning I know I'm only mentioning like big houses, but like Chanel was like insane. Like I like right while I'm talking right now, you can see like the visuals I saw in the Chanel show that made me stop breathing. Not breathing, but I just like the Chanel show. The Chanel show is really good. I watched the Chanel show 3 times. My favorite fashion look of the year was yeah, Kaya Gerbert's. I can't remember the show she was walking, but she was like she closed the show, and that was my favorite look of the year because she looked really good in the look. My favorite designer of the year, I have to give it to Matthew Blazy, and Jonathan Anderson, and Mutual Prada. Those are my three favorite fashion designer of the year. My favorite YouTube channel of the year is what's my I don't think I have a favorite YouTube channel of the year. I was not watching a lot of like YouTube channels. I was watching a lot of podcasts on YouTube. But I would say my favorite podcast to watch on YouTube was the Emergency Intercom podcast and the Candace Owens podcast. My favorite quote of the year is a quote I heard on Saturday, and the lady said, "Real life is not." Wait, let me check the quote. Hold on. Yeah, the quote is, "Real life does not exist in possessions and positions," because she said she was like a politician and now her political career ended 20 years ago and now she's a has been, like not has been in that way, but like she is in the past. And who is she now? Like people are only recognizing her from like who she was and not recognizing her as who she is now. And that was like really profound, because I think a lot of things we do in our life is to like acquire greater positions and greater possessions, so we are known for what we own and what we like, where we are in the like chain of life. But yeah, that was my favorite quote of the year. My favorite podcast episode from WMM, this podcast, is I can't remember. I don't think I had a favorite podcast episode. I think my most the podcast I recommend anybody listen to is I Fear I Will End Up Alone, the episode where I drained myself of every single thing I am and every single thing I believe in and like poured it in. I think I gave everything in that episode. I told you every single thing I possibly could say, and my biggest fear, which was not a fear for a long time, which is like ending up alone in like a deserted island. My favorite advice of the year is always tell the truth, like Candace Owens, because if you tell the truth, you don't need to have a good memory, but if you lie, you need a very good memory. Um, my favorite moment of 2025 is when I should I be honest in this part? I don't know if I should be honest. My favorite moment of 2025 was when I spoke to my pastor about a very serious topic that you would hear. I don't think I'm talking about this ever on the podcast, but yeah, I think that's my favorite moment of the year, and like yeah, that's my favorite moment of the year. My favorite color of the year. I know this sounds really bad, and y'all made fun of the company. I forgot the name of the company that like talks about colors. But my favorite color of the year is white. Call me racist. I'm black. I can't be racist. And my favorite home decor of the year, the styles I saw on like my Pinterest mostly, is no bed frame, just a mattress on the floor and books everywhere. I'll show you like reference photos on the video version of this podcast. But those are my favorites of 25. And I want to do some predictions for 26 because what how would it be a last year episode without me doing predictions? Can you even think of me not doing predictions? Okay, let's go. I predict that something big is gonna happen. Like in a very serious way, something big is gonna happen. I think like I really don't know what's gonna happen, but I know something big is gonna happen next year. I think 2026 is going to be the most chuggy year of all. I think 2026 is going to be very chuggy. I think people are going to be very cringe in 2026, and I'm going to try as much as possible to like reel back and like not be cringe. I know my life is like a cringe show, But I think I'm not going to participate in like the cringeness that is going to be before 2026. I think a lot of people are going to start doing weird things in 2026. I think we're going to see the resurgence of the free, like can you remember like the mannequin challenge? I think there's going to be a challenge like that, or like the ice bucket challenge. I think there's going to be like a goofy challenge like that in 2026. I think 2026 something big is going to happen in like a political way, like something that nobody expects to happen will happen, like maybe a president would die or someone would get shot like Charlie Kirk. um, so mean. I think 2026 might bring be the downfall of Elon Musk. I hope, not only do I think, I hope 2026 is the downfall of Elon Musk and the demonic app he bought. Twitter, um, Clavicular might kill himself because I see him as someone who has suicidal ideations. So annoying. What other predictions do I have for 2026? I think I'm not going to like Beyonce's album that is coming out. If it's actually rock, I don't think I'm gonna listen to it. Who knows? If I listen to like the singles and I don't like it, then I might not listen to the album. Um, I think in 2026 something big is coming. I've said that something big is coming 3 times now. Y'all, something big is coming. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Oh yeah, and I think Christianity is gonna go down into flames in a very huge way in 2026, because I think a lot of Christians were very bold this year in like saying that the world's gonna end, and there are a lot of like delusional Christians who believe that the world is gonna be flooded on the 25th of December. And I'm gonna post this again on this clip on the 25th of December and see if the world has flooded with the crazy Christians who believe like the crazy things in the Bible. Half of the things that happen in that book. Okay, next year y'all are gonna hear my full thoughts on the Christian religion. Don't worry. Um, I'm still Christian though. I go to church every Sunday, but I just don't like my problem with Christians are the annoying Christians. I like Christianity, like the brand and like the religion. I just don't like the annoying people who take it in their head that like they're the best Christians and like the most annoying people to exist with. Yeah, I think that's all my thoughts for 2025. And that's all my prediction for 2026. Something big is coming, y'all. Something big is coming. A race war. I predict a race war. I predict a race war. Hopefully it's not black against like whites, or I think it's something big is coming, y'all. Y'all prepare, y'all prepare, y'all prepare. Something big is coming. Something seriously big is gonna happen next year. Hopefully not where I live. Oh yeah, let me tell you this. Let me say this on the podcast. I think I can say this on the podcast. Okay, before I leave, and this is the last episode of 25. Let me tell you a little bit of a let me tell you a story. So I grew up with my aunties and my grandma because my parents left me in my country that I've never mentioned, because I don't know why I never mentioned my country, but I'm Nigerian and my parents left me, blah blah blah. So I have not I had spoken to my mom, but I had not spoken to my dad my whole life for like a long time. But I spoke to my dad like yesterday. So yeah, that's why I have to say in a very serious way. I spoke to my dad. Yeah, that's all I have to say on this podcast episode. I'll speak to you next week in a very serious episode. No, oh, sorry, I'm not speaking to you next week. I'm speaking to you next year. Okay, should we finish? Should we end the episode? Okay, let's. And the book I read this week is, what book did I read this week? I read a book before. Okay, yeah, The Dyslexic Advantage. I read that book this week. That's a book I read this week, and I loved that book. It made me feel more confident with my dyslexia. And they said dyslexia, they might be dumb when they're young, but when they turn 25, which I'm gonna turn 25 soon, they become greater than the greatest, because the richest people on the planet are dyslexic. Ah! Okay, okay, whatever. Okay. I'm so annoying. That's not what the book said. But whatever. What was I saying? Yeah. Okay, let's end off the podcast. Truly, that's all that has been on my mind for this year. I'll speak to you in 2026. Goodbye.